Today's the big day, the fate of Senator Al Franken. He is going to have a press conference today where there's been rumblings that he's going to resign. Of course, there's a growing chorus of Democratic senators who want him to resign. 38 in all. They say enough is enough. And Christine Gillibrand from lovely New York is leading the charge.
We need to draw a line in the sand and say none of it is okay. None of it is acceptable. There were new allegations today. And enough is enough.
And actually, there were two new allegations. A seventh woman accusing Al Franken of sexual misconduct. She said that he told her that he tried to kiss her and said it was his right as an entertainer. He called this, factually incorrect. Or what was his exact terminology? Oh, categorically
Categorically not true. When
Categorically
people use weasel words like that, I'm always
Well-
suspicious of that, because I would just say, if somebody was accusing me of doing that and they were lying, I'd say you're lying. I don't have to say categorically not true.
He was a radio host at the time back in 2006, was not a
Failed radio
senator.
host of Air
Well,
America. Yeah.
Oh, Air America.
Nobody listened to that.
All right. Well, either way, she was a former staffer that was on the program, and she said when she was trying to leave after the interview, he was between me and the door. He was coming at me to kiss. It was very quick. And she claims that he said, it's my right as an entertainer. I don't know if I really buy this one. Then
Don't you buy this?
I don't.
I mean, I thought I was the misogynist. I believe the women here. I believe
I
them. I
don't.
wonder why this happened now. I mean, why this story's 3 weeks old. After he touched the first one, and remember how they
10
were
years old, the
denigrating her.
allegation.
They were
Yeah.
denigrating her. I mean, I call her sleeping booby, but why did they believed her? There was somebody at the Minnesota State Fair. There were a couple of other people, and then all of a sudden, yesterday, it reaches critical mass. Why didn't this happen like a week and a half ago?
Because you know what happens in 5 days? In 5 days, the people of Alabama are going to put Senator Roy Moore, or put Roy Moore as the next senator of Alabama.
Sure.
And the Democrats have to, this is the game plan. If we have to get rid of Al Franken for taking pictures where his hands, ended up in the wrong places or trying to kiss somebody, then we can't have Roy Moore in.
Well, these things happen very fast, because I believe even Nancy Pelosi has lowercase the I in icon for John Conyers now. And that's how much he has fallen. He's
Right.
like, Super Mario going down to regular Mario.
And now we have an eighth accuser. Oh, and this one makes me so mad. Who claims in January 2009, weeks after, Al Franken won his Senate seat, they were at a party and she got a picture with him because her foster mother loves Al Franken. And she claims that he put his hand around her waist, grabbed a handful of flesh, and squeezed it at least twice. I mean, come
Well, she's just
on.
upset
This
she has
is
love
not-
handles. But, okay, maybe
this
you
is
discount
not
number
sexual assault.
8. It could be.
No, it's not.
Close. It's close to what
These are
Herman
people
Cain did
that-
to you. I saw the picture. He has his hand around you, and he's his index finger, and maybe he's just had long index fingers or something. But it's underneath your breast,
I know.
and that shouldn't be.
That happens.
No, it doesn't.
You know what? That happens
You put
a
a
lot.
little
where
slack in
people-
your arm, and you don't try to grab all the way around.
No, many people, when you take a picture, they get a little handsy, or they just
They're not supposed to.
they
do
think
that.
that your buttocks is in a different place than it should be. Because I'm taller, so I just always pass it off like, all right, well, this will be over in a second and whatever.
It's not good. You shouldn't put up with that stuff.
But it's not sexual abuse or assault or any of that, or harassment. It's not. And that picture is with Herman Cain, I think, is just fine. If you Google image Amy Jacobson Herman Cain,
His
you'll
hand
see it.
is around.
Right.
It's
It is
underneath
right.
your breast, and that's not right. I'm
gonna take
sorry.
it to the
Maybe I'm
streets?
protective. I don't know.
I think people should, chill out. Just let's prioritize and just, what is important here. But with the fate of Al Franken, Senator Al Franken, let's join Ed Morrissey, who is senior editor for HotAir.com and a
I love hot air.
columnist for This Week. Good morning, Mr. Morrissey. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen here? What time's the press conference? Where is it? Just set the table for us.
Well, it's not going to be a press conference. He's going to make a speech on the Senate floor. So I'm not sure exactly what time that's going to happen, but it's definitely going to be dramatic when it does.
I mean, he is going to resign, isn't he, or is he
No,
not?
I don't know.
What do you think?
Don't know. We don't know. Initially yesterday, Minnesota Public Radio reported that, based on a source inside, that Franken was preparing to resign, and then Franken's Twitter account, at least his official Twitter account, said that's not correct. No decision has been made. He's still discussing this with his family, and we'll have something tomorrow. And it was supposed to be just an announcement today, but then this morning we found out that, or at least his office said he plans to give a speech on the Senate floor, which, knowing Franken, that doesn't sound like a resignation.
No, it doesn't.
Still be, but it doesn't sound like one.
And I heard the Minnesota Public Radio report. I heard Garrison Keillor give it. But okay, so Ed.
But what do you do if you have 38 and even the Senate minority leader is asking him to step down and to resign? I mean, how else can you go on unless you resign?
Right, just simply don't resign. They don't have any authority to remove him right off the bat. You have to, in order to expel a senator from the chamber, it requires a 2/3 vote of the entire chamber, and I'm not sure that the Democrats can even bring the motion. They need Republicans to do it. And I'm not sure Republicans are going to be motivated to help them get rid of their Al Franken problem.
No, they want to have a 3-year Bob Packwood ethics committee investigation and drag this on so that they don't get the moral high ground and can go after Trump and the Republicans as well. This is kind of fascinating. I mean, what if he stands up there and all of a sudden gives like a Jimmy Stewart speech? Mr. Franken goes to Washington and he defends himself and says, "Look," he says, "I'm sorry. These were bad things, but I grew up in the '60s like Harvey Weinstein when you're supposed to do these things, and I want to move on here, but there's a difference between me and Roy Moore." There's a possibility that he could point the finger at everybody else. Who among us has not grabbed a little tush in this day? I mean, something like that. What do you think?
Yeah. No, first off, I got to give you mad props for your Jimmy Stewart.
Go ahead, Ed.
I think what he gets up and says is that maybe there's for the to look at. He's kind of had these sort of passive, non-denial, platitudinous answers until yesterday when he actually issued a firm denial of the 7th accuser. But I think he gets up there and says, look, I mean, even if you want to pursue this, there should be due process involved here. I think it's unseemly that we just push somebody out over untested allegations. The voters of Minnesota elected me to this office, and they'll have a chance to elect somebody in 3 years. Let's have due process. Let's go through the process. Let's not just rush to judgment. I think that's what he gets up and says if he wants to stick around.
Wow. All right, you're in Minnesota. What are people there saying? Are they backing him? Do they, I was surprised that people in Minnesota, voters, put him in office to begin with, but what do they want?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. We've had a couple of state legislators resign just in the last couple of weeks over sexual harassment allegations, and they're going to have a special election in February to deal with those openings. I think people here are pretty annoyed about the sexual harassment scandal. I think they're annoyed about politicians who commit sexual harassment. And frankly, I think the DFL has so many other better options than Al Franken that they're hoping he resigns so that Mark Dayton can appoint somebody who is less assailable, I guess, and maybe less vulnerable in the next election.
All right, so, really, but when we come down to due process, and it's fascinating, and other people have pointed this out, that Al Franken is all in favor of these Title IX deals for the schools where no male gets any kind of due process protection, and anything that a woman says goes. But for him, all of a sudden, he needs due process. What does he need due process for? Either admit to some of these things that they actually happened, and how many does it take? It's like prunes. Are 4 enough? Are 7 too many? How many do you need in order to oust him from the Senate? Or should he just make the argument, look, there are changing standards right now. There used to be a liberal lion in the Senate named Teddy Kennedy, who would play hump the hostess with the waitresses. And now you're saying all of a sudden that what Al Franken did a few years ago, which was okay, nobody made a big deal about it then, is verboten. So maybe he somehow argues that. It's not the greatest argument in the world, but, what do you do?
I don't think he's going to go after his colleagues as much to that extent, because I'll tell you the other argument that he could make. I actually wrote this in my post this morning at Hot Air, is the fact that all these same colleagues were standing behind Robert Menendez
Oh, that's right.
when all of these issues with Solomon Melgen and the flights to the Dominican Republic and all of the favors that Melgen was giving Menendez, and the fact that the Department of Justice is still prosecuting Robert Menendez. I mean, they are saying due process, due process, due process with Menendez, who may have committed some serious felonies, whereas they're trying to throw Franken out. And the only difference between the two is the fact, well, there's two differences. One is that Franken doesn't appear to have committed a serious felonious crime. He might have committed some misdemeanor assaults, but he didn't commit felonies. And the second is that Minnesota's got a Democratic governor, whereas New Jersey has a Republican governor for the next couple of weeks. And if he really wanted to go after his colleagues on the Senate floor, he'd bring that up. And but I mean, then you're really torching the.
Sure.
He's a caucus of one after that, you know.
Oh, I would love Stuart Smalley to get up there and give him hell. I mean, that would be so funny. I am good enough, and you're going to keep me here.
Gosh darn it, I'm smart, and people like me. Tomorrow, President Trump heads to Pensacola, Florida, which is near the Alabama border. Do you see Roy Moore with him at that event?
Well, I would be very surprised if the White House is going to get that close to Roy Moore. But then again, I'm surprised that the RNC is back in the race there. I thought they made the right decision to get out and let the Alabama State Party support Moore if they wanted to do that. The RNC jumped back in. Trump issued a pretty close to an endorsement of Moore. I'm
get him,
really
Roy.
Disappointed in that.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. What is he even going to Pensacola, Florida for? Do we even know?
I'm actually not sure what the
event is.
I think he's having his dentures worked on there. I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's a nice time of the year to be in Pensacola, but I mean, other than that, I'm not sure what he's doing. He's
lots of
probably
trouble.
doing a fundraiser rally sort of thing.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed Morrissey. We'll read your article at hotair.com. You're the best in the business. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed.
Oh, thank you very much, Amy. Appreciate it.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news,